All right, I'm going to set you free, more free than you probably ever been before. And it goes along with rewriting your story. So let Rob help you out with this. Many years ago, this young lady come to my wife and I, and she had had a horrible childhood with her father. But as an adult, she wanted to make it right. And so she goes to him and says, I just wanted you to know that I forgive you. And he looks at her and he says, well, I forgive you too. Rage comes up in her. Like, forgive me. I didn't do anything. So here's where the story gets interesting. Heard this over and over. I've heard this so many times. But this other lady, same thing. She, as an adult, confronts her abuser that had abused her severely as a child. And she said, I just want you to know that I forgive you. And they looked at her and said, for what? And she's like, for this you did, and this you did, and that. And they said, oh, I didn't know that affected you so bad, and walked away. Oh, wow. See, that whole story she had wasn't their story. I'm not saying what they did was right, it was wrong. However, she was wearing this badge of forgiveness that had to have the story in front of it to make the badge worthy to wear with pride. And look, I have forgiven this person. But that story was just her story. It wasn't their story. And let me explain a little bit farther for you if you'll stay with me. And I want to make it clear I'm not excusing bad behavior. But I recall another instance where a person for decades had lived in unforgiveness or the feeling of unforgiveness because of something they had done to someone else. And when they called the person finally, they got their number, they looked them up, and they said, I want you to forgive me for this I did. The person said, I don't remember. What'd you do? See, it was that person's story, not the other person. And this is how you're going to be free, because your story is only being played out by you. So let's back up to the lady that said, I forgive you. And they said, for what? And she said, this, and this. She looked at all that stuff they had done that was laying on the table, the proverbial table. And she goes, I realized I was living that story so I could wear this forgiveness badge. She said, I had to decide whether to keep living that story and keep living in the energy of it and proudly wearing the forgiveness badge, or I could leave the story and the badge and the whole thing on the table, get up and walk away and start a life fresh and free. So should we forgive? Yes, but you're going to forgive yourself for devising a story that would evoke pity and would gain you popularity amongst the egotistical, actually. Understand me, I'm not trying to play into the psyche here. I am giving you an absolute simplistic truth that you are divinity wrapped in dirt, and you can build a life, create a life from what you have starting right here, right now. And you don't have to use any of the blocks, building blocks, or stories from yesterday. We, look at me, are not victims. We are not martyrs. We have been seduced and tricked into staying victims, but we are not victims. We are creators of our lives. and of our destiny. And I set you free with these stories, but more importantly, with the understanding that you can write the best, most powerful, fresh story ever written. It is in your power. It is within your power. Years ago, there was a very wise man that sat up on a hill, and people would come to him from far and wide for answers, and he was never wrong. He was never wrong. But there was this young guy said, I'm going to prove the old man wrong. I'm going to break his so-called wisdom. He said, this is the plan that I have devised. I am going to catch a bird, and I'm going to hold it in my hands. And I'm going to go and I'm going to ask the old man, is this bird dead, or is this bird alive within my hands? Now, if the old man says the bird is alive, I'm going to crush it and show him that it's dead and prove him wrong. If he says the bird is dead, I'm going to open my hands and let it fly away. Thus I will have tricked the old man. He makes his way up the mountainside to the old man, and he says to him, Old man, is the bird within my hands alive, or is the bird dead? The old man pondered for a moment, and he looked straight into the young man's eyes, and he said, It is as you wish.